the earliest week 13 running back rankings you've ever seen in your life, including the Thanksgiving Day games. That's what you're going to get this week. Running backs and wide receivers, the first 2 episodes, then quarterbacks and tight ends. And then Hayden and I would take a few days, maybe talk with some family, more importantly, some rest, eat a bunch of food, and then on Sunday morning back here with the Start Sit Show. But Hayden, you're on a heater with your running back 1 pick. Last week you had Jahmyr Gibbs. This week you're calling your shot with Achane against the New Orleans Saints as your overall RB1.
What you'll see is the elite running backs are all in pretty difficult matchups this week. I would say Achane's is the easiest against the Saints. The team total is rock solid at 24 points. He's just game script agnostic as well. And he's just been a monster. Like over like the last month, he's the RB3 on RB3 usage. So this isn't that outlandish. If you expand the sample size to the games without Tyreek Hill, and especially if you remove that Cleveland Browns game where they stop everybody, he's averaging like 20 fantasy points per game. So I do like his matchup. It's very even across the board. Obviously, the next guys get a million touches or big play threats as well. But Achane's catching a bunch of passes, and he gets some goal line carries, and we're starting to see some of the explosiveness. And I trust their offensive line like this much more than I used to. So I think all that's kind of coming together where Achane should have some viability as the top option.
We've said it numerous times, but despite the chaotic nature of the Miami Dolphins organization this year, it has been Achane and it has been Jaylen Waddle and then no one else. And if you look at the running back position, and this is just for the entire season, you obviously have JT and CMC and Jahmyr Gibbs at the top, but then it's Achane ahead of Bijan, ahead of James Cook, ahead of Josh Jacobs, whoever else you want to talk about here. And what I actually really liked is, when they faced against the Buffalo Bills, albeit it is the Bills defense, but it wasn't just these edge runs, which we know he can be special on. It's not just the receptions to the outside. There were actually plenty, and I mean plenty, of big explosive gains between the tackles up the middle and him breaking second and third level arm tackles on top of it. So I have zero issue here with Achane as your RB1 on the week. And if we can throw our first point total out there, they're at home, projected to score 24 points and beat the Saints by 6.
Yeah, that's back-to-back weeks with over 20 carries on top of it. So we think of him as the receiving guy. Well, if he's getting 25 touches and he's that fast, seems good.
25 touches does not hold a candle to Christian McCaffrey right now, who had 31 touches on Monday Night Football. Now, it's the Cleveland Browns defense, which is exceptional. Interior players, edge players. But as we continue to talk about, the rushing doesn't really matter for CMC. It's all about the receiving work.
Right. But even then, like the Browns are pretty good at stopping that. They got an awesome linebacker. The team total just way lower than it typically is. So it's at 23 points. They're in Cleveland too. I didn't have time to look at weather, but I know weather in Cleveland in late November is not pretty. There's not much of like Hyatts on the lake over there, to my knowledge. So yeah, he's impossible to ignore because he gets the ball every single time. But the matchup, it makes me nervous, Yeah.
I mean, literally 9 straight touches it felt like to open that game.
Yeah.
I'll look at the weather for you right now. This game will be in Cleveland, Ohio on Sunday at 1:00 Eastern. There's a lot of rain projected all weekend, maybe some snow as well. Something to keep in mind.
36 degrees or something.
Yeah. 19 to 32 degrees at this moment, but we know what.
There you go.
Constantly change. Okay. Jahmyr Gibbs off of a monster week against the New York Giants, as you called, does get a more difficult defense here against the Green Bay Packers. It is no surprise to anyone that according to NFL Pro, Gibbs has reached the fastest speed of any player when running the football this season at 22.34 miles per hour, and actually is near the top also in carries that reach 15 plus miles per hour. This Packers defense, as we continue to talk about, is talented, but you can run right at them up the middle.
You can. He got stuffed back in week 1. Remember, that was the week where he caught like 10 passes, but it like equated to 40 total yards. It was like one of the wonkiest games ever. Just did want to note the last 2 games, the split between Gibbs and Montgomery has been wider than it's ever been before. I don't think that's a coincidence when you have Dan Campbell. The Lions right now, if the playoffs started today, would be out. So it's like time to go. Like we got to get our best players the ball as much as we can. And I would say probably right after Jonathan Taylor, is there another running back better than Jahmyr Gibbs at this point? I'm not sure if there is. So The team total is not as high as it typically is, but it's still rock solid at 25.5. The Green Bay Packers, their run defense is a little bit weaker, but it's still fearful. I think he's going to go absolutely nuts down the stretch here.
Yeah, and that was with a different play caller. Let's remember that. And on top of it, in week 1, I remember it was a big discussion for us that the lines were projected on the road, again, on grass for 22 points. This is in a dome at Ford Field for 25.5. So that is a difference for this Lions versus the week 1 matchup.
And on underdog, he's projected for 108 total yards. So we have feast week over there. This is a Thanksgiving game. We have tons of DFS tournaments, like draft style DFS games. It's like my favorite year or favorite day of the entire year for DFS and drafting. So go over to underdog. We're in more states than ever. Huge boost in tokens and everything that you can possibly dream up over on the dog app.
Yeah, I'm sure producer Weaves during this week will throw out some graphics for feast week. I'll just give you the app because it is beautiful and glorious in itself. You can see at the top, I mean, you can take top sides and totals right now over an underdog in over 20 states. Prediction markets, we have them. So if you're in Florida, Texas, Georgia, California, just as you're spending some extra time with your family and a conversation boots up that you don't want to be a part of, instead just open up the dog app and play $5 your first time, and we'll give you $75 in bonus cash in your direction if you use promo code the show or click the link in the description down below. And we're in other 20 plus states, so 40 plus states out there on top of it. So if you couldn't play a couple years ago, now you can, and now's the perfect time to do it. Let's talk about Derrick Henry, your running back 4 against the Cincinnati Bengals. A Bengals rushing defense that did quite well, all things considered, last week against the New England Patriots. I went back and looked at this entire Ravens offense, and we'll talk about the passing elements in the next 2 shows that we do.
Yeah,
man, for the rushing offense against the Jets, so many just like 1 to 2 to 3 yard runs and very few explosives, despite using all the patented Todd Monken personnel groupings.
Yeah, but we're still going to get some explosives down the stretch here. This consistency is like no longer there for the Ravens. Like that used to be like a consistent like 3-4 yard game, and then they would spring it open. We're just not getting the same level of success rate. If you think that he doesn't have as much juice right now, so that kind of makes me think that they're going to lean on the big dog right now as they get into December. It starts to get really cold outside, and Lamar Jackson right now is just like not the same level player. And still, the Ravens are projected for 29 points, the highest of the week. The Bengals can't stop anybody. If Lamar Jackson's on himself and they're expected to score 29 points, what does that mean? That means the big dog goes crazy. So this is when he starts to go nuts in December. We're here officially. He got the rock a lot last week. Aside from Christian McCaffrey, he was the highest expected fantasy points of the week. I don't think that's a coincidence. Got some goal line carries. This is the time where you can victory lap fading Derrick Henry in September, but you can't do that in December, and it's time to go.
Yeah, I opened the conversation with negativity, but that's because, honestly, the Ravens offense so far, you can kind of only say negative things about it. They haven't played their best football. Let's put it that way.
Right.
And we've seen them, as we've discussed in the past, play their best football in the regular season and not in the postseason. And a lot of Ravens fans are kind of feeling like this is the Joe Flacco Super Bowl run where they were the basically worst team to make that playoff season. And then they played their best ball. And they still have the pieces to do it, albeit the offensive line's a little bit worse. One final note here on Derrick Henry. His 12,294 rushing yards now moves him into 12th all-time, surpassing Marshall Faulk, Marcus Allen, Edgerrin James, and company. So pretty cool to watch history in that.
Hell yeah.
Jonathan Taylor, running back 5. We saw him stuffed last week, only forced 3 missed tackles, generated a season low 10 yards after forcing a missed tackle against the Kansas City Chiefs. And you go from that defense to now the Houston Texans defense.
Yep. This is what I was talking about when it's another difficult matchup for our elite running backs. The Colts team total is down at 24.5 points. That's been, 26, 27, 28 points at times, no longer here. These 2 edge rushers are complete animals, but it's not just that. Like their secondary guys make it hard to just like even move the football. So not going to say too many negative things about Jonathan Taylor because he can absolutely rip off explosives. He's still heavily utilized. But there's a reason why the Texans are now in the wild card graphics, and it's because their defense is unbelievable. So I like him. Don't love him.
Bijan Robinson is your running back 6. I didn't bring this up because I didn't know it at the time on Sunday, that the Falcons are now the team using 13 personnel the most. They use it on 60% of their offensive snaps. Now, that was because they only have one wide receiver, and it's Darnell Mooney. Yeah. And so they want to use, an unknown tight end. But that was 33 of 55 plays. Now, unfortunately, just 3 of Bijan Robinson's carries had a positive EPA this past week, and he still got pretty pathetic blocking up front.
Yep.
But hey, he has the receiving chops to do it. And this Jets defense, while it was good last week against Derrick Henry, you can still get at them, I believe, with Bijan.
Yeah. Yeah, the matchup's good. There's just concerns with the state of the Falcons. Like last week, he was only 9.6 expected points for Bijan Robinson, which was like near his season low. Kirk Cousins out there just not going to be driving the football. He had that one nice throw to Darnell Mooney, but for the rest of the game, the Falcons offense was pretty lackluster. So 21-point team total is lower than all of the running backs we mentioned ahead of him, sometimes a lot lower. And he's not the guaranteed goal line option on top of that too. So is he going to catch a million passes? Could he rip off explosives? Absolutely. His situation is the worst out of the top 6 running backs that we're talking about.
James Cook is next for you as your running back 7. This is at the Pittsburgh Steelers. James Cook has reached 95 scrimmage yards in 3 of his last 4 games, including a season high a couple weeks ago. 3 games of 95 plus scrimmage yards since week 8 is the most in the NFL.
Yeah, the Steelers defense has kind of cleaned up their act against the run. They gave up a couple explosives through the air to Caleb last week, but 5 straight games under 115 total rushing yards, and then that's on a 94-yard average there. But still, like, the Bills' pass game is a complete mess. Like, they keep taking sacks because nobody can get open. So I think, like, as the season progresses, they have no choice but to, like, completely ride James Cook. So they're projected for 26 points. And this is kind of where he's been for the last, like, 365 days.
Saquon Barkley is your running back 8. The Eagles offensive lineman basically came out and said, hey, we struggled to run the football against the Dallas Cowboys because they came out in 5-man fronts, and they felt like they had never seen 5-man fronts in their entire lives before.
Right. And their 5-man front's better than the Eagles' 5 blockers right now. It is what it is. The lack of right tackle, the interior play is just like not nearly as good. The scheme, like how they're like getting to guys, is not very good. So a lot of the offensive linemen who are just grinding the tape of these guys keep mentioning like, hey, like that's like an unfair block. Like you can't ask the center to get all the way across. And especially when it's like Quinshon Williams. So they're just like severe messes with the Eagles' run game in particular. Their run game is way worse than their pass game. Now we're talking about the Bears. So we can only go so crazy here. We'll see about the injury report. It's freaking Tuesday at 7 o'clock in the morning here. I have no idea if the 3 linebackers are going to miss again. I don't know if the top 2 corners, the slot corner and the outside corner, are going to play here. There was defensive tackles and edge rushers also banged up. So it kind of depends on the injury report where I'm going to have Saquon Barkley. He can be probably as high up as RB5 and then as down as like RB11. It's going to depend on exactly how beat up the Bears linebacker group is.
Just keep that in mind with every name that we talk about here. We typically have to have educated guesses on injuries. There's no education involved on a Tuesday morning when we're recording this.
No.
I will add, this is a Friday game, a Black Friday game. It's at 3:00 Eastern. They are at home 7-point favorites. And I know I continue to say this about the Eagles rushing attack. And look, maybe it just doesn't get better the rest of the season. But in these next 5-6 weeks, it's the Bears defense, then the Chargers, then the Raiders, then the Commanders, then the Bills, and then the Commanders again. So if there is ever a get right spot for this rushing offense, it's in these next 6 weeks.
There we go.
I know it's that time of year. You just want to stay inside, do nothing on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But guess what? There's someone in your life that needs to get out, spread their wings, feel like they've accomplished something. And so if you don't have any ideas, what I'd love to do is pull up the SeatGeek app and see what's going on in my area. Like for me, Nate Bargatze is performing in a couple of days, or I can go see Gunna. 2 different types of people at those events, most likely. Also, someone named Dijon is playing tonight. Look, that's what SeatGeek is great for. Finding new talent out there that maybe becomes your favorite artist. Or if you're struggling for some type of holiday gift, like SeatGeek already has events up for, next year. I can look up something that's coming in April or July, or Alex Warren on June 26th. That's what SeatGeek is good for, getting you or your significant other up out of their seat and making life a bit more enjoyable. Of course, I have a promo code for all of you guys. You can use code FANTASY10 for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets, whether you use it for the first time or not, the app before or not, with promo code FANTASY10. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Thank you, SeatGeek. All right. Travis Etienne, your running back 10. This is at the Tennessee Titans. Jaguars expected to heavily win this game on the road, favored by 6.5 points against this Titans defensive line and defense overall.
He's just been a monster in fantasy. Nobody wants to admit it, but that's just the reality of the situation this month. He's the RB8 on RB2 usage. He's been a top 12 fantasy running back more times than not this entire season. Jacksonville is projected for 24.5 points. Last week, Bhayshul Tuten was out there for 21% of the snaps. He's never cleared more than a third of the snaps in any game this entire year. LaQuint Allen's just in there kind of as a pass protector. When they need a big play, they're looking Travis Etienne's way, and right now they're passing the ball a lot less than they did at times earlier on when they had their like top 2 wide receivers out there. So I'm expecting maybe Brian Thomas to return here, but Travis Etienne's just been like Mr. Reliable to them, and I don't think that's going to really change in this one. So I'm just kind of sticking with where he's been for most of the season, which is like a fringe RB1. So nobody wants to rank him up here, but I will.
Okay, let's talk the Green Bay Packers backfield. And again, we're hoping Josh Jacobs returns for this one. If not, basically plug Emmanuel Wilson straight into this, if not even higher, based on what we saw last week. Now, their point projection is lower than it was last week. It's only at 23 points here on the road against the Lions. But Josh Jacobs, very good player in an offense that really relies on the running back production.
Right. I'm expecting him to be like fairly healthy. It was like a knee contusion and
a bruise.
Yeah, they knew that they had a game on Thursday, so it made sense for them to like sit him and then be more prepared for a super important game against the Lions on Thanksgiving. So we'll see. I'm expecting him to have like his usual role. I knocked him down a little bit just in case there's some like injury risk, or if they just want to say, hey, Emmanuel Wilson, you had an awesome game. Like there's no need to have Jacobs touch the ball 20 times and now it's more 15 times. But still, like, when they get down to the goal line, they're always running the ball. It's just not an easy matchup. The Lions defense, like you can't find a metric where they're like not top 8 and they're really physical. So back in week 1, he had 70 yards in a score. That's like what Josh Jacobs does. He never gets 100 yards, but he never has 0 touchdowns. It's 70 yards and a touchdown. That's what he had against them back in week 1. And that just should be the expectation for most weeks.
Okay, let's talk about Javonte Williams against the Kansas City Chiefs. So Javonte Williams has been a strong fantasy asset this season, but it has really tailed off in the last 3 games. And it can be for multiple reasons here, but just going through it, prior to the bye, he was running back 29, then the bye week, then running back 26, then running back 19. Now that was against the Cardinals and the Raiders defense, which you think you can run on, and then Philadelphia, and then now Kansas City. And so to me, it makes sense that he is a fringe-ish top 10 ranking for you here.
Yeah, nothing's really changed. It's just kind of, to me, falls into like the small sample category. They're like using Kevontae Turpin in the backfield because they don't have an RB2. It's like what, Malik Davis. So correct. Javonte Williams, he's been above 71% of the snaps in every game this month. He just hasn't scored as many touchdowns as he had previously, which I just think is wild small sample stuff. So he had 8 rushing touchdowns in the first 8 games, and then he hasn't scored a touchdown in the last 3. Like, let's just even this thing out. I think he's one of the biggest positive regression candidates out there. The Chiefs' run defense is good, but the Cowboys are projected for over 24 points. They're at home, and that game has a lot of shootout potential. And the games are getting really important for the Cowboys because they pretty much can't lose a game. Maybe they can lose one game and sneak into the playoffs, but it's time to go, and they're just not going to trust any of their backup running backs. So, like, bell cow on elite offense in a potential shootout, like that's an RB1 performance. So I'm just buying the dip.
Kyren Williams, running back 12. Rams projected for a whopping 28 points here on the road in week 13. We asked the question, or at least I did, because, I zone in on these things a bit too much, that without Tyler Higbee and him on injured reserve, how much 13 personnel would the Rams utilize? We'll talk about it when we get to Puka Nacua and the wide receivers, but it was just 6 snaps and 13 personnel. And a lot of those were in the fourth quarter. So he's still going to be, a fantasy asset, even if they have bigger bodies out there or not, but just wanted to note that personnel change for them.
Yeah, it's just been the same rotation, and finally caught up to Kyren Williams. He was running really hot, scoring a bunch of touchdowns, was highly efficient, but he was still rotating drives. And last week was finally when, when you're losing that many snaps and all the touchdowns go to Devontae Adams at the goal line,
right,
then all of a sudden you kind of have an off game. So it was a season low in expected points this last week. Over the last month, he's the RB13 and RB19 usage. That's kind of where I've been ranking him, is right around that range. Once again, they're expected to score a bunch of points, second most on the week at 28. You get the Panthers on short rest. So I like Kyren Williams, but the reality is every other drive goes to Blake Corum. And there's almost no exceptions to that at this point. And there really shouldn't be. They're kind of making the most out of it. So he's fine, but he's losing a lot of snaps.
Breece Hall, you're running back 13. This is against the Atlanta Falcons defense. Receptions this past week against the Ravens of 40, 15, and 14 yards. Yep. I went back and watched them last night. 2 checkdowns, 1 screen pass. The checkdown that he had, that he spun away from Malohi Gilman, that went for 40 yards after the catch. Then he crossed the entire field and ran away from defenders on top of it. It really showcased why so many of us still believe and still love Breece Hall as a talent.
Yeah, I'm just expecting an upside game from Breece Hall. So he's been the RB17 and RB25 usage this month. I'm ranking him higher than that. The team total is low, but it's not pathetically low. It's at 18.5. And what do we talk about the Falcons? They're light in the shorts. And the Jets offensive line is the best unit that they have collectively. And Breece Hall, to me, his injury and maybe want to kind of goes up and down. Right now, it seems like it's really high. I noticed the same exact thing on his receptions this last week. By the way, that was 4 of them this last game, which isn't setting records, but when the Justin Fields game, it was just typically not as high as that. No Garrett Wilson. So what would I do if I was the Jets? I would give Breece Hall the ball a lot. And I think that's what's going to happen here.
All right, Chase Brown at the Baltimore Ravens. A 63% success rate versus New England as a rusher. The second highest in any game this season. I'm assuming number 1 was against that Pittsburgh Steelers defense in week 1. We just talked about this Ravens defense. Him catching passes out of the backfield is a possibility here. But at the same time, I do believe that there's been a bit of cohesion with this Bengals offensive line, and it's not nearly as worse or as bad as it was to open the season.
Yep. You get Joe Burrow back here. No T. Higgins makes me believe that Chase Brown's going to be a little bit more involved, perhaps at the goal line too, because T. Higgins gets those back shoulder fades down there. The big piece of news, though, is not even the Joe Burrow stuff. It's actually that Samaje Perine was a full participant on Monday. The on-off splits for Chase Brown are pretty notable. So in the games without Perine, 17 expected points. With him, that's at 12.4. We'll see if that split kind of holds here, because Chase Brown with Joe Burrow has been pretty good. So kind of splitting the difference here. Pick'em Lobby agrees. 83.5 total yards for him is actually pretty solid. The team total is about average at 22.5. Do I love the matchup? I really don't. Kyle Hamilton was in and out of the lineup, so we'll see the final injury report there. But Hamilton's a big deal because he's kind of just owning running backs right now, especially out in the flats. So that would be a big deal.
They did get Taj Brooks in here or there, but then he even missed the entire second half of last week. So it would be interesting to see if, as soon as Samaje Perine, after a multi-week injury, is able to get back on the field, if he does take 33 to 40% of the snaps away. If he does, that's very different than what we're getting right now, which is the Chase Brown 2024 usage.
I'm guessing it's going to be more Chase Brown than where it was with Samaje Perine initially. Just first week back coming off the injury. It was a severe ankle injury as well. Short rest on Thursday.
Let's talk about Ashton Jeanty. Faced the Browns last week. Now he's on the road at the Los Angeles Chargers. A new play caller, Greg Olsen, replaces
the other
Chip Kelly. Not that Greg Olsen. Yes. The one who I believe last called an offense in 2021 or something like that. Do you expect any changes here?
Well, the problem is a lot of the Raiders offensive line issues were just skill issues. I went back and watched the sacks, for example, and when your right tackle, your left tackle, your center, and your left guard are getting like literally just like truck sticked over, then it's just hard to win football games. Doesn't matter who's calling plays. Yeah, maybe there's a little bit of a rally here, but the reality is the Raiders are projected for 16 points here. Only the Vikings are worse, and that's, an undrafted free agent going into Seattle. So it's a bad situation. Now, with Ashton Jeanty, he caught 1 million passes last week. He actually had like 20 fantasy points. You wouldn't believe it if you watched that game at all. But he caught 1 million passes. He played 81% of the snaps. And if they're trying to save some face right now with their rookie class, like you got to try to get Ashton Jeanty some like counting stats here, because the rest of the class is total garbage. So not expecting a whole lot, but the Chargers run defense has been pretty mediocre, and Ashton Jeanty doesn't come off the field.
Yeah, he has forced a missed tackle on 32% of his rushing attempts this season, the fourth highest rate among all running backs across the league. You saw it when he truck stick 33 was trying to fill the lane. You also see him catching passes when he's actually able to face off against defensive backs. Unfortunately, so many of his runs are against defensive linemen or, full speed downhill linebackers at or behind the line of scrimmage. So I still think that Ashton Jeanty looks like a quality talent. At the same time, he did leave like limping this game with about 3 minutes to go after kind of getting bent in the opposite directions.
Yeah, they said he was fine, but that if he doesn't practice much this week, then I might have to tinker with the ranking.
All right, TreVeyon Henderson is your running back 16. This is against the New York Giants. Hayden, typically, like you did with Jahmyr Gibbs last week, this is a spot where we want to attack running backs. And for for TreVeyon Henderson, he started every single drive last week. Unfortunately, the Patriots are down 2 rookie offensive linemen. For sure, Will Campbell. We'll see about Jared Wilson at left guard. We've talked about every single week that their success rate, their down-to-down blocking consistency has been terrible. And it might get even worse with backup offensive linemen out there.
The reality is the Giants can't stop anyone on the ground, and TreVeyon's a big play threat. So, could he rip off huge plays and finish as a top 12 fantasy running back? Absolutely. Pick'em lobby's up at 92.5 yards. Wow. Definitely in play. That's a lot. Now, for the negatives is one, the Giants fired their defensive coordinator, so maybe they start to figure some things out. Like, for example, Dexter Lawrence wasn't on the field when Jahmyr Gibbs had his 1,000,000-yard touchdown in overtime, so maybe they get Dexter Lawrence, on the field. I also don't know which Patriots offensive lineman is going to be blocking this Giants defensive line. I know the Giants have been terrible, but this Patriots offensive line, name some starters that they got. It's not looking good right now. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is TreVeyon got a couple goal line carries, but it wasn't the point of those drives. They subbed in Terrell Jennings or Ramondre Stevenson. And I'm just going to guess Ramondre's going to play a little bit more the further he gets away from that turf toe injury. This one's on Monday Night Football, so he gets another day of rest as well. So I'm expecting a committee, and then it just comes down to TreVeyon needs the explosiveness to kind of pay off. The good news is the Giants have allowed that almost every single week.
Yeah. I mean, I believe it could be a massive week. I would have felt like it could have been a more massive week if the offensive linemen were intact. I did go back and watch, obviously, all those Jahmyr Gibbs runs when Penei Sewell, is signaling touchdown with 55 yards left for him to go.
Pretty cool.
And the big issue here for the Giants is if you give your running back the second level, their linebackers and their safeties and their corners just get locked up. They cannot shed blocks. They cannot get into spaces to make tackles. It was hat on hat, man on man, and they're just getting walled off and sealed off. So hopefully that's a possibility here. It was interesting that it felt like last week with Hendo, there really weren't that many edge runs. They really tried to force things between tackle to tight end. So we're hoping for an explosive play here. That's for sure. And he can do it. Kimani Vidal is next as your running back 17. I mean, the roller coaster continues, doesn't it?
Yeah. I've been trying to find Omarion Hampton news. I know he on the sideline the week before their bye week. I just haven't seen anything to believe that he's going to play or not. So I'll update the rankings on Underdog Network. But with Vidal, it's the same thing with the TreVeyon stuff. When the offensive line gets this tattered, you have to kind of reset expectations. So this month we've kind of felt that Kimani Vidal is only the running back 26 on RB21 usage. That was a lot higher when he was initially starting because the offensive line was a little bit better. But still in the 5 starts, that's 13 half PPR points. You get the Raiders who I went back to watch all the Shador stuff. The Raiders defense, it's so vanilla. It's just like, it's pathetically vanilla. It's like, it's
just
so
single
bad.
high stuff over and over and over again.
It's just like, we're gonna do cover 3 again. Like,
yeah.
No, you watch like the Seahawks and the Falcons, and like you can feel the panic. And then with the Raiders, it's like, here it is, cover 3. Okay, let's go again. So I just feel good that the Chargers, they're a mature enough offense where they're going to be able to handle that. 25.5 points is the team total here. So I hope we get some positive news from Omarion Hampton. This is probably where I would rank Omarion Hampton coming off of that ankle injury, but we'll figure it out as the practice reports come in.
I don't think I've gotten a single thing from Omarion Hampton other than like seeing him jog on the sideline a couple weeks ago.
That was it. Yeah.
Okay. Ken Walker is next for you as running back 18. We did see, after a week of coach speak, some pretty, I'll call them significant changes. Some might call them slight. I'll call them significant. Started 7 of 9 drives, played 14 of the opening 15 snaps. Now, of course, the red zone touchdown went to Zach Charbonnet, and of course, he lost 2-minute situations. But we kind of moved away from the drive to drive exchange, and instead it was a lot of early K9 here.
He pretty much didn't come off the field for the first 3 drives, and the next one was the 2-minute drill, and that's where Charbonnet is going to sub in for him, but that's totally fine. A lot of our like top 15 fantasy running backs, like that's the situation that they're in. Didn't love that Charbonnet got that goal line touch. That was a lot of Kenneth Walker on that drive previously, but I would say this is just a graduation. We'll see about Holani with the hamstring injury. I'm guessing he's not going to play in this one. The team totals up at 26 points. They're 10.5 point home favorites against the Vikings. Ooh. Could Max Brosmer set up Kenneth Walker at the goal line? I can totally see that. So kind of thinking about this, I just want to believe in what I saw, and let's move him up ahead of Ashton Jeanty here.
Ooh, I like
if he's going to be...
That forced me to move TreVeyon down to the tier 3, row 3 game.
Okay, then let's put Jeanty down further and keep TreVeyon up there. Why do I care?
That's a nice exchange.
The Kenneth Walker stuff, if he's going to get 60+% of the snaps and he's going to get all of the carries for the most part, you're going to see the explosiveness come back and like the ability to have 120 rushing yards in a game. That's a lot harder to do when you have 10 carries, but if we're getting to 15 carries, just the upside path is there. And it would make sense to me that Kenneth Walker, as the season progresses, gets more and more of the usage. And like, to me, this is how I would utilize the Seahawks. I'll have Charbonnet out there in passing situations. You can mix him in at the goal line, but for the rest of the game, it should largely be Kenneth Walker. It's a good spot to do it.
Yeah. A lot of his explosive runs this past week were up the middle, like inside runs type things on inside zone. I'm a little bit nervous about this Minnesota Vikings front. They like to clog gaps and, sugar those situations. Nasty. And we know hat on a hat stuff for the Seahawks can be kind of hit or miss in terms of their assignments with that. So it's going to be a fun matchup, at least the Seahawks offense versus the Vikings defense. You don't necessarily have to watch the other side of the ball.
No, don't actually.
Okay. Rico Dowdle is next up as your, I believe, running back 19 here. What'd you think of Rico Dowdle's usage on Monday Night Football when he was averaging 6.5 yards per carry?
I can't explain. First of all, I can't explain them like not trying to run the ball a little bit more. But secondly, like why Chuba again? Like the split was never this close. And like, that's where I'm just kind of second guessing what the hell I'm supposed to do with Rico Dowdle. Also the inconsistency of the quarterback play week to week. It's like so maddening to try to get a beat on this one. But just, they're only projected for 18 points this next game. And I'm not like fully convinced that he's going to be the bell cow. So like compared to like Breece Hall, it's the same exact team total. I know Breece Hall is getting all the touches in the world. I think Rico Dowdle will, but I'm not like fully confident again. Like why was Chuba Hubbard in there getting a goal line carry? Why was he getting full drives? Why was he in like the first couple drives, like rotating in with Rico Dowdle? I don't know. That's your answer. I
mean, for a play caller who said he can't wait to prove how stubborn he is running the football, and then not from, the 1 yard line or also the 1 yard line in a 2-point conversion too, doesn't make a lot of sense against a defense that has so many injuries, especially at linebacker. It makes no sense. And now they're down their 4th right guard, and now they're playing their 5th right guard on top of it. I mean, Rico did everything right in that game. And we've seen other performances where, the play calling forces them to run into situations that aren't getting anything at about 3 yards a pop. But when they are getting about 6.5 yards a pop, then they move away from it. Makes zero sense to me.
Yeah, and I mentioned that the team total is at 18 points. It's also against the Rams. So it's like,
Correct.
You don't run on the Rams. Like nobody does. Like just a fact, and you just keep it moving. So he can catch passes too, and hopefully, like we see sometimes like play callers will be like, all right, I kind of effed up the game plan last week. Like now it's triple down on the thing I was supposed to be doing, which could mean like run the ball a million times here, but it's a lot less. It's a lot more boom bust now with Rico Dowdle than it was a month ago.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that should have been like the Packers game. That should have been, like the Dallas Cowboys game, the Miami Dolphins, all that type of game plan here for Rico. And it just wasn't. Okay, RJ Harvey's up next. Edge runs off a bye week against his Washington Commanders defense. This could be some nice stuff. And they haven't brought in a 220-pound bruiser in the bye week as well.
Yep, post by rookie bump. I was trying to keep moving RJ Harvey higher and higher, which like should mean something to you guys because like I did not draft a bunch of RJ Harvey. I had like my concerns here, but like this is a spot to not have very many concerns. The team totals up at 25 points. The Commanders can't stop anybody. They're largely in Cabo mentally, and Jaleel McLaughlin like got that goal line carry, but that was also like after RJ Harvey got a bunch of touches in a row. Like I'm not guaranteeing that Jaleel McLaughlin's going to like sub in for RJ Harvey at the goal line. And if we do get like the same split with Harvey last week, but he does get the goal line touchdown, that's a pretty sweet roll. So I'm expecting just better things for RJ Harvey. It needs to be better to save some fantasy seasons, but you get Tyler Bidet in the pass game role. I think it's going to be largely RJ Harvey over Jaleel McLaughlin. Not a bell cow situation, but the offensive line versus the Commanders front seven mismatch is about as drastic as it gets.
I'm kind of surprised. I know you keep wanting to move him up, but maybe even higher. But maybe this is the week that it happens. I mean, 25 points, and he can excel in the situations where, to me, the Commanders really struggle. And especially if they want to use him in the passing game on top of that, then that's like isolated against Frankie Lugo and Bobby Wagner. Like that could be some fun stuff.
I would love him to move him up. At the same time, I can see just he played 48% of the snaps. What could you do? So
I hear you.
I think more of a upside play than like a guaranteed.
All right, Quinshon Judkins is next as your running back 2021. I've lost count at this point. He has collected 555 yards after contact this season, with those yards comprising 90% of his total rushing yards. That's the fifth highest among all running backs in the NFL. And you see it. He's got some real pop on first contact. And then he has the acceleration in the first 2 or 3 steps to also create after the contact too.
He's one of the best runners in the league. Like he's so impressive every single week. They got down there, used him as a wildcat as well, which I don't think is a coincidence.
Twice.
Like, get the ball out of Shador's hand. Like, let's ride Quinshon Judkins. I think like that's just kind of the MO. Now, unfortunately for Quinshon, the reality is it's like the worst offensive line quarterback situation like in the league. It's like right down there. And that's the offensive line has been a problem. Now Judkins like works around it. In the 5 games without Joe Flacco, Quinshon's averaging 12.4 half PPR points. That's like exactly kind of lines up with this ranking. Now they do get this 49ers defense who's missing everybody. So it's kind of like bad on bad up front. And they're at home. And it's a short week for San Francisco. So team total is only at 17 points, but largely that means Quinshon Judkins for as much as you can.
17 and a quarter, but I'm with you. We already saw first and second down runs galore last week for the Browns. And then it was, hey, Shador in third and long situations. It was the rollout as we saw the downfield pass versus zero blitz. And then it was also, hey, Harold Finn, and here's a 1-yard pass and go break 4 tackles. So
which is a good
the
strategy,
game plan
by the way.
already was very Judkins specific. And I think it'll continue to be that.
And you just mentioned what, 34 degrees and rain, in Cleveland. Like this is the time where like you get these like Nick Chubbian type of games. So
Now,
I think I like him better than this ranking.
Dylan Sampson did play quite well last week.
Always,
do you think that he has earned a couple more opportunities? I think there's still going to be enough for Judkins on top of this.
Yeah, I think Sampson's like a good pass down back, but there's enough room for, Judkins to go crazy still.
It's been really, really fun to watch Quinshon Judkins this season.
Yeah.
Okay, Kareem Hunt is next. So we got a report yesterday from Jeremy Fowler that Isaiah Pacheco is targeting a Thursday return from his knee injury. We need the volume and we need the goal line for Kareem Hunt. I expect him to still keep the third and short success rate runs, and I expect him to keep the goal line touchdown runs. And so we might lose, I don't know, about 30 or 40 yards, but that matters less than, touchdowns.
Yeah, and we'll see. Kareem Hunt's all reliable. When Pacheco came back from injury last year, it was still Kareem Hunt more than Isaiah Pacheco. I think unfortunately here, Trey Smith is not going to play, who's an awesome right guard, and now you get 3 defensive tackles in Dallas. So these kind of like plunge runs up the middle. I wouldn't be surprised if it's more like we're doing Travis Kelce and Rashee Rice like BS stuff near the goal line. That said, he's been way better than this for a long time in fantasy. Like he's always underranked. Last week, once again, was dominant. He's the RB8 in usage this month, so knocking him some with Isaiah Pacheco. But he's all reliable, and this should be a tight game. Team total is massive, so you're going to need that touchdown. But he might get it.
Kareem Hunt with the Zap bark bump this week as well. There we go. All right. After Kareem Hunt, it is Jaylen Warren. I mean, left with 317 in the fourth quarter. I believe it was an ankle sprain. We're not going to have any news on that at this point, but it didn't sound like it was overly drastic.
Yeah, last week, like dealing with the ankle, him and Kenneth Gainwell kind of like rotated, and that's what Arthur Smith has said. Now, it was a little bit more Jaylen Warren, and then like Kenneth Gainwell ripped off that 55-yarder on like a tush-push variant. So
sweet.
It's still mostly Warren. And it's another run funnel. You get the Bills here. It's like not my favorite matchup just because the Bills can kind of go crazy and kind of put Jaylen Warren out of game script, but they can't stop the run. And Arthur Smith right now is just like dialing up like a really fun, interesting game plan while everything's within like 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. But that's just the reality that the Steelers are living in. So it's more 50-50 now than where it was like when Jaylen Warren was kind of like really popping off. It's like a top 15 running back, but still like him enough when we have game scripts like this.
Next, Woody Marks, another rookie, running back 24. He just had, I believe, a career high in rushing yards at 74. The Texans offense also used their jumbo formation on 21 of 56 snaps, got Blake Fisher in as an extra offensive tackle. Again, Nick Caley's trying to pull these levers, and they've won 3 in a row with Davis Mills. We'll see if CJ Stroud comes back. That is kind of still up in the air. Like, I think he's still in the concussion protocol, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it makes me nervous.
But the most notable thing here is that we have multiple weeks now, back-to-back and almost back weeks, where Woody Marks is clearly the running back 1 on the Texans ahead of Nick Chubb.
I would say the Texans offense is just making some correct choices, like Marks over Nick Chubb, Jaden Higgins playing more, but also not just like slapping him out there at X receiver. Like you're moving him inside and outside where I think that it's best for him. I like the 6 offensive lineman stuff rather than having like tight ends work it back across and pass protection. So I think Nick Caley, there was like some reasons to be pretty panicked about like the first 2 months, but I think since then we're starting to find some good answers here. No idea about the quarterback situation. Davis Mills is like fine enough as a backup. And yeah, Woody Marks has been the RB16 in usage this month. So it's been a lot of him. He's a positive regression candidate here. A little bit more of a run funnel on paper to me. Like you don't have DeForest Buckner for the Colts, and now you have all these weapons in the secondary. I would kind of run the ball a little bit more than usual, and I think that Nick Caley will do the same.
Okay, Tyrone Tracy got way more work last week.
Yes, he did.
Now he faced the New England Patriots, who I think it's a little bit time to readjust where we're believing their rushing defense was as a top 3 unit for the vast majority of the season. It's going to be knocked down a couple pegs here without Milton Williams. Also, this is from Jim Sonis. 4-game sample for the Giants without Cam Scadaboo. In the first 3 games, Devin Singletary owned that 81 to 19%. Last game, though, Tyrone Tracy basically flipped the script in that regard.
Yeah, he was actually getting some work inside the 5 and 10 yard line, which was new. And like you said, with the Patriots, their schedule has been really soft. And Milton Williams, I do think that their numbers on defense are not as good as what like the reality of their situation is. So I think Jackson Dart's going to return here, but Jameis Winston's been totally fine. Dart does steal like more goal line carries. So like I would rather have Jameis for Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary. But team total is like just mediocre, not terrible, about like 20 points. But the last week was just massive. Season high 18.4 expected points. He's now the RB22 and RB23 usage. So he's like starting to turn into the guy we thought he was going to be initially when he was on the waiver wire. It took a couple extra weeks to get there, but it would make more sense to like get Tyrone Tracy involved more than like Devin Singletary, who's an expiring contract.
He's looked quite good, I feel like, the last 2 weeks. Okay, Aaron Jones, this is at the Seattle Seahawks. He played 66% of the snaps this past week. Certainly the team total is down very, very low. And on top of it, Jordan Mason did take 75% of the short yardage work away from him.
Yes. Now the Vikings have completely like abandoned the pass games. Like the last couple of weeks, it's been like their lowest neutral pass rate of the season. I would guess that's going to continue with Brosmer. I think Brosmer is going to be better than JJ McCarthy, just because like it's hard to be worse than what he's been doing. But like they're projected for 15.5 points. You get to see the Seattle Seahawks. So yeah, he's the RB25 and RB30 usage this month. That's with him like largely being the starter in the clear 1A on a team that can't move the football. I'm expecting the same old thing here.
If you struggle to get that person in your life, say your mom, your grandmother, your mother-in-law, a gift, I have the perfect one for you. It is the Aura digital frame. I got my mother-in-law one a couple years ago. I swear she just sits in her living room and watches the new photos that we upload online for her just from our phones over and over and over again all day. Plus, we're expecting our first child in December, right around Christmas time. This will be the perfect way, again, us from the hospital or at home, to upload these new photos and videos to the Aura frame to our family members so they don't have to come and bother us in our own home. So for a limited time, visit auraframes.com and get $45 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames, named #1 by Wirecutter by using promo code The Show at checkout. That is AURA frames.com, promo code The Show. This exclusive Black Friday Cyber Monday deal is their best of the year. So order now before it ends. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. DeAndre Swift, running back 27, revenge game against the Philadelphia Eagles. This is pretty far down low. And I think there's a couple reasons for that. One, Monangai just played more snaps last week. And two, this is a real tough stretch for the Chicago Bears the rest of the way. They're going to be very, very tested. Albeit, and I'll get into some statistics after you mention, the Bears' rushing offense has been maybe their most consistent element since the bye week, but that'll be tested here against the Eagles.
So it's just been like this for the last couple games. DeAndre Swift is like rotating drives with Kyle Monangai. And like last week, Monangai's drives lasted longer and Monangai gets the goal line plunge. That's not always going to be the case. I will be ranking DeAndre Swift ahead of Monangai until proven otherwise. Like the real reason why he's down this low is because they're projected for 18.5 points. And like on top of that, it's the damn Eagles who go 3 deep at linebacker. They go 3 deep at defensive tackle. They go 3 or 4 deep at edge. Cooper DeJean in the slot is a good tackler. So yeah, it's just a really tough spot for him. DeAndre Swift was a top 18 running back in 5 straight weeks. And then the last 2 weeks, he's finished outside the top 28. I think that's a little bit of noise and a little bit of Kyle Monangai there. But to me, like the ranking is this low because like huge hat tip to the Philadelphia Eagles. This defense makes me very nervous.
I learned yesterday that I'm never going to post about the Bears in a negative light on Twitter ever again because they're just so sensitive at this moment. But 2, I'm still going to talk about them on the podcast here.
Of course.
So with that, I mean, DeAndre Swift averaged 1.6 yards before contact per carry this season, the 5th most of any running back with at least 75 carries. That's really good. And again, we've seen that really since the bye week. I do want to bring up who they've played against since the bye week. It's the Commanders, the Saints, the Ravens beat up defense at that point, the Bengals, and then these last 2 weeks, the Bengals and the Giants. And then these last 2 weeks, the Vikings and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so maybe there's a element here. It's like, okay, a certain tier, we can really get push. And, Darnell Wright's playing really good. Benedette is a really fun, athletic run blocking left tackle. But this is, again, a great test for where the Bears are at this point, who really haven't put together 4 straight quarters of consistent offensive play in quite a bit, because it's Eagles, Packers, Browns, Packers, 49ers, and Lions the rest of the way.
I think with Swift in particular, like all these big outside zone runs, like he is like really trying to get to the perimeter, then cut it back. It's just like more of a boom bust style there, where if he does kick it all the way back, you can like have an explosive run. But when that gets bottled up, like you're living in like some negative runs. So that's like a type of scheme issue, also a DeAndre Swift issue, and then a matchup issue on top of that. So hopefully the revenge game kind of takes fold here because everything else is kind of working against him.
Don't get me wrong, though. Swift has had, I think, a very solid season.
Yep.
And more solid than he's been in the past. And as always with him, one screen or one big run, he has the ability to do that versus many, many other players on this list, including next. Rookie Devin Neal steps in here. You know, this Kansas Jayhawks headshot.
Yeah, that's right. Rock chalk.
If you do not know Devin Neal, he was a late round running back pick, kind of a average in everything, bad in nothing type of back coming out of Kansas. And he's filling in for Alvin Kamara here, who after seeing a big workload and then going to his bye week, gets injured about a quarter into week 12.
I'm expecting Alvin Kamara to miss this one, and then it's going to be Taysom Hill and Devin Neal pretty much as like the two. Now, like the Taysom Hill stuff, we got to graduate. We've got to come up with better ideas than this. You know,
we have
too much.
Now a third different play caller because you had Sean Payton. And then you had the stuff previous to this year, and now you have Kellen Moore. And you think every single time with more and more money owed to Taysom Hill that they would just move off of him. No, instead, there's something in that building that infests you and says, okay, we've got to use Taysom Hill here.
Yeah, it's like a national debt problem with his contract that they have to like force him to be on the football field. But with Neal, he is like, he reminds me of like a guy that like the coach, like he's a coach's son type of player where like he's just so polished in every single way. Is he like athletically like a marvel? No, he's not, but he can kind of do a little bit of everything. He's really tiny, but he was kind of used as a bell cow at Kansas, and you kind of throw him into any scheme. He can catch the ball well. I think for his size, he's like fairly good in pass protection now. Like size is one of the biggest parts of pass protection in the NFL. But I do think that this would be wise for the Saints, who are just a tankathon team right now, to see what they got with Devin Neal, because the Alvin Kamara contract is very much up in the air for this next season. Devin Neal has barely played this entire year. They seem to like Kendre Miller. Like, could you go into next season with Devin Neal and Kendre Miller? Like, we'll see. I think that for them to figure that out, you got to give them the rock. The Dolphins have been much better against the run recently, but it's like not that insulting of a matchup. So he's like you can do worse in your flex play to me.
Yeah, I'm just checking my notes for all the prospect videos that we did. I wrote that his superpower is how connected his eyes and feet are, and in terms that makes him look faster and more athletic than maybe his testing numbers did.
Correct.
And he's just an efficient mover on top of everything. So yeah, that was a big down performance for the Saints coming out of a bye week compared to the one that they had prior to it. So
definitely so.
Okay, here's Bucky Irving. People have been waiting for this for months and months at this point. Hopefully, everything is good on the Bucky Irving front, because there have been some odd, vague reports from multiple people out there. Todd Bowles has said that they intend to play Bucky Irving here in week 13. The big question is he going to get 55% of the work like he did most of his rookie season? Or is it going to be the 70% work that he earned in the opening 3 games of this year that everyone drafted him in the top 2 rounds for?
There was a quote from Bowles when he was talking about Godwin and Bucky that it would be unfair to like play him a bunch of snaps given how long the absence has been. We saw that with Chris Godwin, and like that would make sense for Bucky Irving. It's also a shoulder injury. We just don't know if he dislocated his shoulder back in September or whatever it was, like how much faith do we have that's going to hold up? We'll see. And on top of that, Sean Tucker is a real threat at the goal line because he's so big. And then Rachaad White's always a threat through the receiving game. So now he's kind of being hit from like multiple ways. And then on top of that, Baker Mayfield's going to be playing through an injury, and it's that same left shoulder injury, which largely derailed his Browns career at the end of it. Like that shoulder just kept being a problem. He'd fight through it. And then it would be the Baker Mayfield where he's trying to make the throws that he can when he's fully healthy and he's got a rocket arm, but those throws turn into interceptions when you have a little bit less juice. And I'm nervous about the entire kind of makeup with the Buccaneers because Both guards are injured. Baker's going to be playing through an injury. Chris Godwin's not the same. Emeka's now playing on the outside where you kind of double him a little bit more. And then with Bucky Irving, I think it's going to be a committee. I'd be pretty surprised if he walks in here. So I'm going to rely on the Jay Glazers and the NFL news account to figure out exactly the snap share. But I'm going committee and not the same Bucks committee when we had Liam Cohen calling plays, like league average offense committee.
At the end of last year, he was playing about 55% of snaps and was otherworldly because he's an awesome talent in terms of making people miss and creating explosives and doing everything that you want. And because of that, again, he earned about 70 to 75% of work to open the season. It's just unwise to play a guy with shoulder and ankle injuries off of months off and say, oh, we're even going to give you maybe 55% of the work. Maybe that does happen. And they are projected to win, and they're projected for 23.5 points. I want to have another week. I understand everyone's been waiting and want to play Bucky Irving. Go for it if you want to. I would love a week of information just to, one, see how he looks, and two, to also see what the usage is.
And also for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it's just the NFC South or bust to make the playoffs. And they're playing the Cardinals. It's not that important. Afterwards, it's the Saints, Falcons, Panthers, the Dolphins, and the Panthers again. So the entire division is coming in December, not this week. Like, it's the games that really matter for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the two Panthers games, more or less. So I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of like gradually bring them back. And then hopefully that Panthers game, which is week 16, they can try to see if they have like a full version of Bucky Irving, because like those are the two games that actually matter on the schedule.
By the way, again, if he's been sitting on your bench for months and you want to play him, do it. Absolutely do it. You make the call. I'm just going to throw the next three on the board because we've already talked about most of their backfields. That's Kenny Gainwell and Chris Rodriguez and Devin Singletary. Anything you want to add with that group?
Well, with Kenneth Gainwell, just as Jaylen Warren is working through that injury and it's a run funnel, I think that you can use him as a flex play. Chris Rodriguez, he just kind of took Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt's job as a starter. Now you're facing the Broncos here. So he's been the RB29, RB37 usage. He needs a touchdown. I'm not guaranteeing a touchdown when the team total's under 20 points and you're facing the Broncos, but he is out there. And then with Devin Singletary, a lot more fun if it's not Jackson Dart and when he was like he's the only running back they were using at the goal line. Now that we can't promise that, he kind of takes a hit.
We've already talked about all these backfields. Monangai, Zach Charbonnet, David Montgomery, and Bhayshul Tuten to close things out. I didn't realize it because I wasn't watching the game that Demont got banged up and basically didn't play the entire second half. Anything else you want to add about this group?
Yeah, it's starting to get pretty tough down here. Just team totals are dropping. Charbonnet, I should probably move Charbonnet ahead of Monangai, just talking about the Eagles situation. And yeah, with Tuten, he's like still barely seeing the field. He can steal a goal line carry and have an explosive, but just not playing enough. Did also want to mention, don't know what the hell is going on with the Cardinals backfield. Like Trey Benson, like is eligible to play, but the video I saw of him was not looking too great. And then Michael Carter and Bam Knight are like both limping off to the sideline at times. It's kind of a full blown committee if all of them are out there. So just I'll rank them appropriately as I get more information.
That's going to do it. Once again, later in your feed, wide receiver rankings, a double dip, and then also quarterbacks and tight ends ahead of Thanksgiving. We'll be back on Sunday morning for the Start Sit Show. And as always, this week, when you find some time, go and play an underdog. Use promo code the show. Click the link in the description. If you play $5 your first time, I'll throw $75 of bonus cash in your direction. We've got plenty of bonuses and boosts and all that type of stuff because it is feast week. We're in over 40 states at this point, and especially if you're in Texas, Georgia, California, Florida, Virginia, wherever else, 20 states have prediction markets. That means sides and totals and whatever the hell you want to play. I guarantee you we have it and a better user experience on top of it. So go and play on the Dog app this week and this weekend. Thanks to Mosho and Weaves and Hayden. Up the Villa. We'll talk to y'all soon. See you.